with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. We are convening the Law Committee, the budget hearing for tonight, October 20th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. I will take the roll. Councilperson McDermott.
Here.
Councilperson Ash McPherson.
Here.
And Councilperson Steele here. 3 members of the Law Committee are present. Also in attendance, we have Council President Carmela Mantello, President Pro Tem Zalewski, Council Member Cummings, and representing the administration, we have our Corporation Counsel, Controller, Mayor, and Deputy Mayor. So thank you all for coming tonight. Rick, I think you're up. We will begin with the Corporation Council's budget, which is on, if you're using the hard copy, it begins on page 51, I believe. Rick, would you want to just walk us through some of the, highlights of life in the Corporation Counsel's office, and then segue into the highlights of your budget, and particularly the items that obviously are new this year. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. As I think you all know, the Corporation Counsel is responsible for all the legal business of the city. The city is about a $100 million corporation, annual budget. It has approximately 500 employees, and it currently has 1 full-time attorney devoted to its interests. We do contract out some work, but that situation is not tenable. So the business of the city is every subject in law that you can imagine, from trusts and estates to torts to contracts to municipal law to claims to land disputes and transfers of land and foreclosures. Really, I haven't found a subject that is not part of my job yet, for sure. As far as I don't know, if anyone has any questions on what I do, I'll be happy to entertain those.
I don't see anyone. I think every council member Cummings, did you have a question?
Just, if there's a overview of some of the big projects or initiatives you might want to highlight, either from this year or that you're looking forward to in next year.
Frankly, a lot of, because I am understaffed, a lot of my job is, I feel like the boy putting his fingers in the dike holes. I run from project to project, and drafting legislation and things like that takes up a fair amount of time too. We handle cases as they come in and try to resolve them and try to move on from them. I don't really have a good answer for you right now without thinking about it more. I haven't thought about that. Okay.
That's right. We can move to the budget.
There are things I'd like to do, but I need more help to do it. So the biggest change in my budget is we have budgeted for two full-time attorneys to be in my office. One of them I will probably devote to contracts, to trying to regularize city contracts. The city enters into contracts every week. They're all different kinds of contracts. Some are for professional services, some are for goods, some are for construction, and all of these contracts are really different in purpose, and they need to be different in design. There's no one size fits all. The two principal issues in the law department are liability, trying to minimize the city's liability, and trying to offload the risk on the contractor, to tell you the truth, to make the contractor assume the risk of damage or injury or something like that. So liability and insurance provisions are the things that we get hung up mostly in negotiating with vendors because they don't want the risk either. But we feel if they're taking our money, they should take the risk too. So that's what happens frequently. So one of the new hires will be devoted principally to contracts, hopefully developing contracts that are more finely tuned to the types of goods or services that we are purchasing. And the other hire will be, in my vision anyways right now, kind of a shadow of me or a duplicate of me. I need someone who can also draft legislation when I'm too busy to, or something like that. I need someone who can train to deal with the various departments. I also want someone who can pursue claims on behalf of the city. We're just entering into a new contract for ownership of all the street lights. I suspect people are going to knock those down on occasion, and and they're quite expensive to replace. Witness the amount of money we spend on replacing traffic signals, and so I need someone who will specialize in what insurance companies call subrogation, but pursuing claims so that the city is made whole for damages that are caused to it. In the meantime, I still have my other three deputies, which are all part-time. One does mainly personal injury and property damage, but she's mainly defends those claims. Matt Foley mainly does all our traffic matters. The volume of traffic tickets and parking tickets diminished greatly in 2020, but we expect it's going to pick up again, though it has been a little setback in 2021 due to Delta. My third deputy, Dan Vincelette, is the person who helps enforce our tax regimen, because if we don't do foreclosures, people won't pay their taxes. Oh,
Chair,
yeah.
All right, do you have any more to share, Rick, at this time?
I just have one thing to share in support of why I need more personnel, more lawyers in my office. Schenectady, which is about the same size as Troy, has 4 full-time attorneys. Albany has 9 full-time attorneys. Utica has 4 full-time attorneys, 5 part-time attorneys, and a corporation counsel who I don't know if he's full-time or part-time. Syracuse, which is 3 times the size of Troy, has 20 full-time attorneys. You have 1. That's wrong. We need to build a substantial law department so that the city's legal interests are protected.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you, Rick. I believe, Council President, you had a question?
No,
believe Councilmember Ash McPherson is in front of me. I'll go after her. Thank you, Chair.
Rick, I'm sorry. I'm going in and out of on the audio as well as not having a camera. And I did hear you say that you only have one full-time attorney, and that
Yes,
would be you?
That's me.
Okay, so the other one, two, when you say they're part-time, they're just part-time, are they there just a few hours each day, or they are there or every day?
They kind of have three different schedules. Elena has to be in court a lot to cover the litigations, so she spends a lot of time between Supreme Court and Troy City Court. She also comes in and drafts here. So I let her make her own hours. She certainly puts out the work. Dan comes in at least twice a week. He covers for Matt and will cover any court proceeding that I ask him to do. He's been sick for a couple weeks though, so he hasn't been around, but he will be back again. Plus he also has to cover his own court appearances for the in rem proceedings, and Matt Matt comes in usually on Fridays and Tuesdays. On Tuesdays, he's here for the parking tickets, and then he stays around for the rest of the morning. Then on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, he has Troy City Court, usually sometimes a half day and sometimes a full day. In addition to that, he does a lot of his work. He has to, there are plea bargains that he processes every week. So, I mean, there's a large quantity of those that he has to prepare for Cindy to send out. And he also does them now, since we have this new parking system, he's doing them more, the parking tickets online. But we still have to have a number of those that have to be done through the regular mail.
So, thank you. So the two that you're looking at to hire full-time, would they be
Yes.
covering any duties of the part-time of Matt and Dan and Elena?
Only to pinch hit. And to the extent that either one sometimes I expect these would be young attorneys, and to the extent that any of them wants court experience, I may give them, make an effort to give them an opportunity to have a case in court, if that's what they wanted. But no, the plan is to have them do different duties.
Okay. Thank you for right now. Thanks.
Okay.
Council President?
Hi, Rick. I want to preface what I'm going to say. I think you have done an outstanding job as the Corporation Counsel, really balancing. Obviously, you're a mayor's appointee, but at the same time, you have to also balance the dual role of also representing the council on various issues, including drafting legislation. And when I was here in the 90s, oh my gosh, a huge spider. I'm sorry. Hold on one sec. I'm in the basement. Oh my gosh, I'm talking huge, coming down from the ceiling. Normally I'd let them out, Councilman Cummings. Wow, okay. So when I was on the council in the mid to late 90s, Pat Morphy was the Corporation Counsel. And at that time, he had done both roles also, the, obviously a mayor appointee, and he drafted legislation for us, et cetera. And it worked out. And I do think that you have been fantastic. I also think that Kevin was outstanding when the mayor first came in 2016, really balancing that and not, obviously being too biased. So saying that, I think
Council President, If I just may, as I told the mayor when he appointed me, as I told Lou Rosamilia when he appointed me as a part-time deputy, I'm not on mute, right? I represent the corporation. You know, I do serve at the mayor's pleasure, but in my legal activity, I represent the corporation, and that is the entire city of Troy.
Yep, I get that, and you've done an outstanding job in doing that dual role is very, very tough. So I'm complimenting you greatly. Saying that, at that time, we did have a part-time council for the city council, and it really helped the corporation council. So I know Councilmember Gully, Councilmember McPherson, Ash McPherson, and I have talked about that quite a bit, and other council members. So, so saying that, you know, the problem is, can you get a legislative council that's going to represent the majority and the minority? Kim just texted me and said, sorry, she got kicked out. But fast forward, I have really focused, Rick, and it's before your time, you were a part-time counsel, on the consultant fees. And when I was in office, Mayor Pattison actually really ramped up the consultant fees. And, you know, I think different mayors have, you know, looked at, okay, do we hire within, or do we go outside and hire more consultants? So that fast forwards me to this proposal, because when we came in 2016, you know, I went back to the 2016 budget, and the spider is on half of my notes, but we started out at 195, and then mid-year it bumped up to 286. So that was 2016. And what happens that I notice is, listen, you are definitely overwhelmed with work. I get it. You compared your offices to other cities. Obviously, Albany, Syracuse, they're in a totally different, you know, spectrum than us, being that there are over 100,000 people. But at the same time, I'm not minimizing the workload that you have. Saying that, though, I am curious what their outside consultant fees are in addition to the attorneys. So, you know, when I look at your budget, I get it. You're overwhelmed. You're totally overworked. Our attorneys, obviously, legal is important. But saying that, you know, the full-time, I mean, obviously is public sector compared to private sector, but the salaries, you know, they're, I guess, pretty modest. You're talking 75 and 80. So, you know, they're modest, they're pretty good salaries with the 20% on top with the benefits. So I guess, you know, the question is, mid-year, a lot of times the council does put more money because we do have more consultant fees. And so that's starting consultant fee. So we're looking at this year, the consultant fees is proposed to be 300,000. And, you know, my concern is, compared to prior years, that number has gone up, you know, 30, 40, maybe 50K. And in addition to the full-time, you know, that's a chunk of money at one time. So I do understand your need, you know, to ramp up the office. I'm not sure, you know, 2 plus that consultant's fee, and saying that, I'm not saying that's not deserved. I'm not saying that you don't have an incredibly huge workload, but saying that it's something that I'm going to have to really look at and juggle. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other members have?
Council President?
Councilmember Cummings.
Couple questions. One, we talked last night at the planning committee meeting about the zombie program grant ending. I see that is zeroed out here in your consultant services 113 line as expected. Do you have a plan to absorb some of that work into either your other consultant services line or in-house staff that's being added? And maybe be able to continue zombie enforcement? Are we just hoping that another grant will become available for that? Or what's the status for that?
The status is uncertain because I have heard from Steve that there may be another grant. So I'm not completely sure about that yet. If there is no grant, I planned on having one of the deputies undertake that role.
Okay,
Not the one who's doing the contracts, but the other deputy.
that makes
As
sense.
part of the.
It does seem like certainly there are several large sort of legal projects around code enforcement that have been outstanding for years. We've talked about a code court. We've talked about a rental occupancy program. We've talked about, and then of course the zombie program. So it seems like that could be a big opportunity for, if there was someone to kind of sink their teeth into those things with us, I would imagine that would be very helpful.
It could be. The things that we can do now are, we go to Troy City Court, but that has not been entirely satisfactory with our code violations. We also have an in-house procedure for demolitions or dangerous buildings, and we've followed that on a few occasions. In order to have our own code court, I haven't done enough research to know the answers yet for sure, but I suspect it might take a home rule. And if we have to do that, that will be a fairly major undertaking, I think.
Certainly, yeah. I guess what I'm asking with that is that whether your hope is to have one of these deputies sort of specialize in some of those areas, or whether that might be just stuff you are able to get to if they're taking other things off your plate.
As I said, as I envision it now, and things could change due to circumstances, one of the deputies I need to have help me with contracts, okay? I need someone who I can depend on to formulate contracts, to help me formulate contracts, and to design them so that they fit specific types of purchases that the city does. The other deputy I see is more fluid. I want that deputy to be able to substitute for me on occasion, and I also want that deputy to prosecute claims that the city has. So some of the claims that the city might have, I mentioned before, might be damage to our property, damage to our light fixtures and things like that. Other types of claims could be the zombie grants or, a code court instead of proceeding as we currently do in Troy City Court. But I sort of can't make any promises because I don't know enough. I truly don't know enough about how we can proceed. I would really have to start almost with NICOM to see how other cities are proceeding. A big city like Syracuse has, numerous sections in their law department. They have a whole section for FOIL, I think, and we're just not that big and not that elaborate. But we could I think we could do better if we had the personnel to handle it. And,
okay.
I would like to say something. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Finish, Rick. Go ahead.
I was just saying to Council President's point, the consultants line, it is what it is. It costs what it costs. The city can't go without defenses in these cases. My goal ultimately would to bring, I've cut down Goldberg-Segala's bills a great deal by doing a lot of the labor legwork by myself. The initial stages of grievance arbitrations, but I've used them for the actual proceedings. My ultimate goal would be to bring back more work in-house, but that is something that will take time. It won't happen overnight. When I get to 4 assistants, then I think we'll have most of it back in-house.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Councilmember Cummings.
I do see that on that 409 consultant services line, the first 6 months was way less than half. Has that gone up since? Is that just because of billing schedules? Or certainly it seems like
I think it
You're
is down,
controlling
but I
costs?
think part of it, I think it is down, but I think part of it is due to billing.
The only other question I had was whether there's any update on the franchise agreement,
Say that again.
the
On
Spectrum
the franchise agreement?
Yeah.
No, there is not. I'm sorry.
Okay. Maybe that contracts person. I don't know.
It's one of the matzo balls hanging out there.
Yep.
I apologize.
Chair?
Council President.
Does someone else, I'm on my phone, so I don't have everyone on the screen. If somebody else has a question, I can wait.
I don't see it.
Okay.
I do.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm sorry, you can't see me and I can't wave my hand. I apologize.
No problem. Go
I
ahead.
apologize. Rick, I might have missed it because again, I'm having computer issues and whatnot. And I just want to reiterate that, I do appreciate everything that you do. And I know there's a lot going on in that office and there's a lot of cases that we've had. And you've always been right there anytime that I know I've reached out to you, and you've got 6 other of us reaching out to you for information. So thank you for what you do for the council as well. So
Appreciate it.
what I want to ask you is, and you may have answered it and I may have missed it, and if you did, I apologize. In what area of your office is the most dire need for an additional attorney?
Probably in the contract area. It's just that.
I know you were going to say all. I wanted. I was waiting for you to
I'll
say
tell you,
all.
I think it's contracts because I think that every department needs contracts, and many of the contracts that are presented to me, I can't accept, but I don't have time to rewrite them all. And then they have to be negotiated. Then the other party doesn't want to agree, and so we really need some help with that. I think. So that's to have a backup.
Right, that's where most of the time, a good portion of the time is spent on the contracts and negotiation, which brings me into the litigation expense. Is that litigation expense part of the consultant fee? Is that in addition to, or is it separate? I know it's separate lines, but does it have anything to do with the consultant fees as well?
I think that's really separate. I think that involves all the monies that what?
Those are for, that account historically has been used for expert testimony at trial.
And depositions and paying stenographers and things like that.
That's what that line is. Okay, all right, thank you.
And experts are very expensive.
I know, thank you.
It's also for pay, and also we have to pay arbitrators and things like that too.
So that's for the arbitrations, it comes out of that expense line as well?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. That wouldn't the arbitration be part of the consultant fees or no?
The services of the attorney are consultant fees. But there are costs of litigation that are over and above what the attorney costs.
Okay, thank you.
Are you finished, council member?
I am. I'm waving by.
Oh, okay, we'll wave by too. Council President.
Thanks, Chair. Andy, do you have a number where we are to date? I know Councilmember Cummings brought it up, but he never asked what the number is. And it's probably, obviously it's going to go up because of the billing, but do you have a number?
As of today, $260,355.
Okay, so 260. All right, and we budgeted last year for, sorry, consultant fees.
300.
Thank you, 300. So, depending what bills are out there, and obviously we, have a couple, month and a half left, I guess. I believe, let's see, in 2020, was it? I was looking up the budgets real quick, Andy, and I did see, I think it was 2020. What was, you probably don't have to tell me. Last year's number was
371.
371, 37,
Yep. Got it. Yep.
371,610.
Yep, and 416 in 2020. So, I mean, the consultant fees are up there despite obviously budgeting. So, like I said, I mean, I really have to look at these, but I get it, Rick. I know that you have a lot of work, et cetera. And the salaries, did you compare them to other munis?
Yes, I would say they're maybe a little bit on the low side, but they compare with the rest of our department, the rest of the city salary schedules.
Okay. Thanks, Chair.
I'm reminded by the controller that part of the reason the consultant line was the consultant line in 2020 was before my time. It was inflated significantly because of a interest arbitration that involved not only experts, but you have to pay the arbitrator, and there was two attorneys. This was before I came on board, but it involved a very high expense.
Councilmember Cummings?
I noticed the two different salaries are slightly different. Is there a reason why one's at 75 and one's at 80?
Not a lot of good reasons. I just have one was going to be more my principal.
Okay.
Assistant.
Gotcha. Okay.
Are there any other? Oh,
I guess I'll just make a broad statement. In my experience with the different attorneys for the city of Troy and elsewhere, there are some who focus on telling us what we can't do, and there are some that focus on helping us figure out how to do it. And I think you've done a great job at that, and so I want to thank you for that. And certainly, I think that becomes especially true the more you're able to sink your teeth into these kind of projects. So I think having staff to relieve you of the reactionary and giving you that time to do that figuring is extremely helpful. I guess I will take one opportunity to note something that has been coming up recently around liability for events permits and things like that are often a hurdle for organizations it's required in our law right now. So I'll just mention that as a project to think about in the next year to how we might be able to help the smaller organizations not have to figure out costly insurance costs in order to do good things in our city.
Sometimes it depends on whether or not they want to serve liquor.
Sure, of course.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
And I appreciate the small organizations. I mean, I have tried to do my best. I've bent the rules in many cases. But you know what? My obligation is to the taxpayer of the city of Troy. And if something goes south or goes bad, it's the taxpayer that has to pay. So I know people want to do good. I know that people, don't mean harm. But I have these bad jaundiced way of looking at things. I say, what if this person gets hurt? So
yeah,
that's where I start anyway.
Well, thank you.
And we appreciate that, Rick, because you're watching out for the city in that role. Any other questions from any other council members who I can see or can't see? Okay. Council
Chair?
President. Yes.
Sorry about that. Real quick, Andy, what's the distinguishment between the bonds and notes that are in the Corp Counsel's office and the legal that you used, and you're proposing some more consultants?
So the bond and note expense that's reflective in 1420 is of $50,000 would be for bond counsel, that's Bond Schoenig and King. The total net budget for bond and note is $100,000. We moved $100,000 out of 1420 into 1315. That $100,000 is for fiscal advisors and 3 serial bond ratings, 2 of which will occur in January, and the other one will occur in July.
Council President,
Yes.
I've been insistent that the lawyers get paid out of my office because they technically work for me.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Let's want to have the public record show that Councilman Gully has joined us as well. Welcome, Jim.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late. Had a little problem getting in.
This is your last chance. We're about to wrap up with the Corporation Council. Did you have any questions, Jim?
No, I've had a great conversation with Rick already and have a good feel for his budget.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cummings, do you have another?
Yeah, just there are 2 other budget lines that vaguely impact the Corporation Council. Well, one certainly that does the judgments and claims, which is down significantly. So I just wanted an update on that. Why that's budgeted at 100,000.
Thanks for the segue. I was going to move.
Oh, I thought you were finishing with the Corporation Council. Then never mind. I'll let you lead it.
Yeah, let the chair. I knew she was all over it. You were on that, Sue.
I was trying to report that we had finished with his budget and we were moving on to judgment claims. But
Gotcha. Never mind then.
beat me to it. Rick, you're up.
Well, I have to thank the controller for this principally, but we do such a great job at minimizing the claims against the city and diminishing them to the point where lots of times it's very little money. Probably most of our claims during the year amount to considerably less than $100,000. There are, however, big liabilities out there, or potential liabilities, I should say, whereby the city could get hit for a serious claim. And in that case, we would have to bond. And so to leave that money, to leave the amount of money, so $350,000 or whatever it used to be, in the judgment of claims is kind of, it's not doing anything there. It's not working for the city because we rarely use it. If we're going to have to bond for a big judgment in the future, then it's better to do it that way and to have a more realistic number for the amount of money we actually pay out on judgment and claims. So if I don't say so myself.
Are there any other questions on that line from any council members? Do we have any other budget lines that we should cover tonight under the law committee that I may have missed? Councilmember Cummings.
I don't know if the insurance was covered under this or under another department.
I can discuss it.
It's 2
For
pages
council
before
member
on 81.
80, yeah, I was looking at 82, 81, 82.
Insurance.
I'm sorry, we're going to a different page, 81, 82.
Yes, it's the insurance line. Andy, you're gonna brief us on this?
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
this goes to the discussion from last night in the water fund. This is from, we were on the 9-month to 12-month premium period, so that it is now from January to December, and then also an increase in coverages and an increase in cost. Their estimates provided by the city's insurance agent with the final cost at renewal, which will incur, and it always happens in December for the subsequent year. So these are estimates as provided for by Marshall and Sterling.
And what is this insurance cover? Which insurance is this?
Every type of insurance except for health insurance that the city carries.
Oh, wow. Okay. And they're all just lumped into this one line?
Correct. It is allocated between the general fund, the water fund, the sewer fund, and the garbage fund.
Is there a way to get a breakdown of what the insurance coverages are?
I can send something out to the council.
I can tell you there's a $500,000 retention.
Yes, indeed.
That's what I'm interested in.
Any other questions on that from any council members? Okay, I think that wraps it for the law committee. Am I correct? Last chance, folks. I will take a motion then to adjourn. Who's heading up the next one?
The deputy mayor and myself.
Okay, great. Do I have a motion from council members, McDermott,
Motion to adjourn.
and a second from council member Pearson? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. We are officially adjourned. Thank you all for your participation. Now we turn it over to the council president. Is that right?
No, actually, I mean, I'll open it up and then hand it to, Andy and Monica. So we'll open up, the finance committee meeting to review the capital plan. And if all are okay, the Pledge of Allegiance was done during the law committee. We can accept the Pledge of Allegiance prior. And we'll hand it over to Monica and Andy. And quickly, I just want to make note, all council members are present and active. Take it away.
So I have two things to share. I'll start by, I do have the bond anticipation note breakdown by project that the council president had requested, so I'll go through that briefly. I will send it out at the conclusion of the meeting tonight, so the council members have it to review. If there are specific project questions, about where things stand and whatnot, I'd be more than glad to meet with anyone individually to go through from a financial perspective where things stand. But I will share this sheet because I just want to show where bond anticipation notes are headed in 2022.
May I interrupt for a
Yes,
second?
Sharon?
May I just interrupt? Can I have the pages that we're starting on or we're not starting on, or
Page 272.
can we please have that announced so I know where this,
Yeah, it's in the back.
Thank you.
272.
So
Yep.
So we're starting with the screen, with what Andy's proposed, what Andy has up on the screen first, and then we'll
Right.
go into the other stuff.
Right.
So I'll scroll through it. Just so these are all the bond anticipation notes that are outstanding. It looks like a lot because as we discussed 2 weeks ago, we have not gone to serial bonds since early 2021. Or 2020, I apologize. We have not gone to serial bonds since the beginning of 2020. Where things stand currently in 2020, at the beginning of the fiscal year, there was $41.4 million outstanding. And what I'll do is, as I reference cells, I'll change the highlights so people can see what I'm referring to. I'll switch them over to green. There was $41,424,000 at where my mouse is at the beginning of 2020. This includes both city-issued bond anticipation notes and financing through EFC. In 2021, we have paid down to date $5.1 million on those bond anticipation notes and added new issuances of $30,678,000. Of the $30,678,000, $5.5 million of that is the CSO project and the water line replacement project. We've city-issued $25.145 million in bond anticipation notes. That's principally from 3 different projects: the South Troy Industrial Roadway, the street light purchase from National Grid, which was originally approved to be installment purchase debt, but there were significant cost savings to the city to convert that to city-issued bond anticipation notes. That was approved by the City Council earlier this year. And the 3rd phase of the Siemens project, which Shad Treat presented 2 weeks ago about, that is the new salt shed, the facade and roof at the DPW building, the new traffic and facilities building, and the 118 streetlight installation. So the $25.145 million is principally made up of those 3 projects. That leaves, as we sit here today, outstanding just under $67 million in bond anticipation notes outstanding. I will note.
Council President, do you want us to wait until you come back? Okay, I just wanted to make sure you were there because we kept going.
Yeah, just so you know, I have my phone, so reading this is next to impossible. I really wish that you had sent it prior, Andy.
I just finished it shortly before the meeting today. I would have loved to get it out earlier, but just with time and work capacity, time got away from me, and I apologize.
That's okay.
So outstanding as of today is $67 million in bond anticipation notes. I project and these are projections, but in 2022, I project paying down $20 million in bond anticipation notes through either the proposed budget, unused debt proceeds, and or grant reimbursements, or a combination of all 3 for the various projects. I also anticipate converting completed projects to serial bond in the amount of $13,048,000, which would leave, as we sit here today, the bond anticipation note balance being $33,854,000, which would be ongoing projects. That would be almost 1/3 of that balance would be the streetlight acquisition and the 3rd phase of the Siemens project. Again, I'll send this out to the council. If anyone has any questions about it, I'd be more than glad to meet with them.
In the water line.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
Do you have to complete the actual conversion of all the streetlights in order to issue that as serial bonds, and make it inactive? Or like, is the conversion in the same ban as the purchase, or are we now anticipating the purchase won't be completed until 2022?
The project is one bond anticipation note. In the event that the project was complete in its entirety by late June 2022, the whole project would go to serial bond. We could partially serial bond the acquisition costs and leave on ban the installation costs. So you can split it.
Okay.
It will be an assessment of where we are with the project at that time.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on that, or someone will. Thanks.
And Andy, you have mentioned, I mean, I will have questions, but I'll have to look at it when it's on paper. I literally have it very tiny. I'm barely able to see it with my glasses. So needless to say, the parks, you had said, and I had to run and get my glasses, so I might have missed it. I apologize, but you had said $1 million has been appropriate, or you have gone out and gotten $1 million of that already out of the two
For what?
for the park improvements?
For the parks, yes, 1 million.
Okay, what I'd like to
That's-
see is out of that million, what has actually been spent. So if the line, like say State Street Garage, maybe that's a bad example, or, you know, the phase 3, so say 6.34. I'd like to know how much has been spent out of that, or does that mean it's out the door?
So in the
Or-
next column G,
It's not-
Yep.
That's not on there. The total project expenses to date, we can look to add. That will take some time to put together. So I can send this out and then do a separate report that shows total project expenses to date broken down, if you'd like that.
Yeah, I would, just so we know where we are. I mean, you know, understand, obviously, you know, the council authorizing these bonds, and, you know, obviously with COVID, some work was able to be done, some work wasn't. I get that, but I just want to know where we are, because I'm also concerned we're going to be asked to bond more dollars. And before we bond more dollars, I want to make sure that monies are going out the door, that we're spending these monies appropriately, and, you know, obviously just doing our job, ensuring that what we authorized is, and I'm not saying anything bad's happening. I'm just saying it's our job just to keep track.
I can put something together.
Thank you.
And I'll also note, because I know before we get into the PowerPoint, that it's going to be asked if there's an analysis of the pay downs of the proposed bond resolutions for the 2022 capital plan. That is something that I'm currently working on putting together to send out to the council. I just did not have time to have it ready for this evening.
Okay. And, you know, I guess one of my really kind of more overarching, we have bonded, and when you go through your PowerPoint, you might be able to answer this more directly. But we have bonded prior years, I know, for some vehicles, et cetera. I'm probably, maybe they all were purchased, maybe they weren't. That's why I want to know, because obviously sometimes you can purchase, sometimes you can't. Obviously with COVID, I'm sure various purchases were also delayed. And so, you know, I like, honestly, I saw the DPW, the 5-year, and it popped out, and, you know, I saw obviously equipment, and we're trying to steer away from that. But so anyway, if you can, I'm sure it's in your PowerPoint.
so just to reiterate from what Andy had said earlier, is as projects, because the bond authorization is specific to the actual resolution that's created for it. So that sits in a capital project account, and that money is only used for that specific issuance. So
Right.
even like city park improvements, so let's use that for example. Like we've used that funding for the construction and the documents that you saw the other night. So that will be, even though we might not have spent $1 million on building, you know, a playground, that money is still there so that the playground can be done when the construction documents and stuff are ready. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I get
No,
that.
I know you know, but I just want to make sure that, because that comment was made, that people understand, since this is a public meeting, that those monies don't get filtrated to other uses. They're specific to the program that they were designed for.
Yep, I get that. And I know James has left, but I did ask Steve a couple times for that report on the park. So I would love to see that at some point.
So I'll work on putting that analysis together and getting it out to the council. Are there any other questions about this sheet?
Yes, I have my hand up, Chair.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I can only, Andy, if you, I apologize. I can only see whoever is talking. I'm on my iPhone.
Yeah, please leave this up for a second.
Councilmember Ash, yep, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
So Andy, as I'm looking at this, I'm assuming there's more pages to this because like the only thing I can see is the State Street Garage, police cameras, city park, Siemens, DPW.
Oh, I'm scrolled to the bottom. Here they all
Okay,
are.
so I'm assuming there's more there because I'm looking at this and it's kind of difficult just to see the numbers down below. So can I just ask a question on the police cameras? Are these the street cameras, the body cameras? What are they?
Those are the street cameras.
So these are the street cameras that we bond. Is that column D, 275,000?
That's how much is outstanding. Yes, that's how much that we issued in a bond anticipation note currently.
And only 40,000 has been used?
No, the 40,000, the column that you see there is the projected amount to be paid down, to pay down the principal of the bond anticipation note in 2022.
That's the 2022 payment.
Just 40,000. So the 275,000, have we done anything for the street cams?
That will be included in the analysis that the council president requested.
Yes, there's been work done on the street cameras.
A lot of work, I think.
A lot of work.
And we'll have a breakdown of where and what.
You'll have it'll just be the aggregate of the total.
So if you want an actual project update in regards to how many cameras and stuff like that, we can certainly let the chiefs know to make sure to bring that to their budget hearing.
Absolutely. Can you do that, please?
Certainly.
And I'm going to look at, I mean, like I said, it's difficult to see what you got here because you're controlling the scrolling up and down, so I really can't see. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more stuff that I know I may look for, or other council members may look for in this, but yeah.
I'm going to actually ask, you know, Andy, if you could send this to us and we can have another meeting to go through it because it is really important and it's something, you know, that obviously I've been asking others for a little while. I know you're really swamped, et cetera, but I do want to go through it. So to just pick and choose and only see, like, honestly, a quarter of it isn't going to do me any good. So if council members are good moving on, I'll schedule a separate meeting. Will that work?
That's fine.
If that's, yeah, that can work.
Thank you. Okay. Maybe you could take that down. I'll get at least 4 people on the screen here. Awesome. Thanks.
I do have a PowerPoint to share regarding the 2022 capital plan, if that's okay.
Absolutely. I just have to go get my lead cord, but go ahead, start it, Andy. Thanks.
We'll start it back. We'll wait for the council president to return until we start, just so everybody hears at once.
Okay.
So the 2022 capital plan, which begins on page 272 of the document. Funding philosophy regarding the capital plan for 2022. there was a balance between operational need and the financial cost long-term to the city when including assets in the proposed capital plan. There were requests made by departments for 2022 that were reviewed and put out into 2023 or beyond. So there was a pretty thorough analysis done.
And no's.
And there also were items that were no's to departments that requested capital plan items within the budget. Funding was determined, how it's being proposed to be funded for. It was a balance between the total cost of the asset and the period of probable usefulness as dictated by New York State finance law, in determining if it should be recommended to be on a bond resolution or funded through the capital project, or funded through the operating budget. As we go through the slides, you will see items in bold that are highlighted in blue. Those are funded through the operating budget. This is the highest dollar value of a capital plan that I have since 2013, when I was hired by the city. This is the most a capital plan has ever been funded through the operating budgets.
So just to jump in for a second, if everybody remembers on the letters that we receive on the budget review from the comptroller's office, there's usually a write-up in regards to being able to put vehicles, start putting vehicles into the operating plan for the corporation versus bonding for them. So Andy was able to do a really good job this year to be able to get the start of that. And it seems that we've gotten a pretty good favorable response from OSC to date in regards to Andy being able to do that. So kudos to him for figuring that out.
As I go through the slides, the slides will be broken down by section of the capital plan by department. For items that are just in 2022, that was done in hope that to make it easier, instead of referencing the PowerPoint and the document at the same time, it would all be put onto one. So getting into it, the Department of Public Works' capital plan totals $1,160,000. The equipment trailers and loader attachments are both funded through the proposed budget, with the exception of the asphalt patch truck, hot box body. Everything above there is replacing current assets, with the asphalt patch truck increasing operational efficiency for the streets department.
Again, this is on page 272. You just go along, the numbers will match up.
I know that Council Member,
Go ahead.
I know Council Member Cummings sent an email out earlier today requesting a list of vehicles within DPW and other departments. That is something I'm going to work with Sean Hooley on tomorrow and preparing for the council, and we will have that out to you hopefully by the end of the week.
Great. Our DPW meeting is next Tuesday, so certainly by then would be great. Thank you. Council President, I do have one question. Okay, I'll just go. I was comparing to last year's projection for 2022, and it had non-CHIPS paving, sidewalk program, and facilities improvements all projected for 2022. Did those move somewhere else, or what's the plan for those?
So with the additional touring routes money, we've been able to do a lot of that work up front. So it's way more than a couple $100,000. So we have the ability to kind of work with that. And the nice thing about using the touring routes money that was allocated to us this year, it allowed our potential rollover of CHIPS funding to be able to jump into next year. We aren't sure. We're doubtful that the touring money is going to roll over, so we're trying to obviously go through that first, because the CHIPS money will roll into next year. That was a pretty significant amount of money that, if you remember, it was over $3 million. So we've been able to do probably the 5-year plan of that program with some of that money anyway, so, and still have money left over.
Great. the sidewalk program in particular, we discussed trying to develop a program to better enable residents to fix their sidewalks. Is the touring program paying for those as well, or is that something that's still on the to-do list?
I'm not quite sure about the sidewalk program you're referring to. That hasn't been brought to me in full form. But I know that is something that we are taking a look at through the federal funds to see if that's an allowable potential. I know Councilwoman McPherson's been talking to me about that as well. It's something that we're taking a look at because it would be kind of a one-shot versus trying to implement a program. It was seeded, I believe, before through the CDBG program 10, 15 years ago. And I'm just not sure we have the staff capacity to be able to track and move forward on that. So we are looking at other ways to potentially do something like that, but just not through the operational budget.
Okay. Yeah. So in the capital plan from last year, there was $250,000 per year in 2022 through 2025 projected for something called Sidewalk Program. I don't know if that was related to the lawsuit downtown, or if maybe Rick looks like he's still in the room, maybe he could speak to that. Or is that work being done through a different program now?
I know the CDBG program has picked up as part of their 5-year plan, some of the areas of more need, I'm going to say, outside of their, so for example, the current 5-year plan includes 2 years south, a year at State Street, and then 2 years north. So I think that was part of that. But again, I think if this was the sidewalk program, and I honestly can't remember from last year, if this was a sidewalk program that we're kind of referring to, we're going to try to look at a different way to fund that rather than through bonding and or through operational budget.
Great. Yeah, I mean, the law is that it's funded by the property owners adjacent, but the question is how to do that in a way that doesn't create undue sudden expenses, but is managed over time.
Well, there is that there's that legal aspect of it too, as the lawyer sitting in the room, because of the fact of who owns the sidewalks, who maintains the sidewalks, and if we replace it, what does that mean? But that's the same thing with the CDBG program, but it's a federal program rolling through. And that's something we can explore as we get a little further into it. And it's just being reviewed.
I mean, I could just add that, to my understanding, and it may not be entirely accurate, is when we do a rebuild of a street, we take it upon ourselves to build the sidewalks as well as the road. So we do the curbs, we do the sidewalks, we do all the infrastructure. Under our code, adjacent property owners, abutting landowners are responsible for maintaining their sidewalks, and that includes replacing a sidewalk if it's out of code. But when we do a rebuild, we normally do the sidewalks also.
Okay. Okay. Well.
And I don't know what the sidewalk program was.
Yeah, I think it was an idea for next year, but that's all right if it's moved to the side. Certainly, it's something that we should continue to find ways to improve. The other thing that was missing from the estimate of 2022 was the facility upgrades and improvements. You had budgeted $100,000 per year just for ongoing facilities improvements. I'm not seeing that in this year's budget.
No, we are doing a lot of facility improvements through the Siemens program.
Yeah, no, I understood.
In fact, every building at DPW has been upgraded through the Siemens program.
So do you feel that, well, I guess, why isn't any of that reflected in this? It's just a different line.
The Siemens projects?
Yeah.
Because this is future capital plans. It's prospective. It's not looking back at current capital projects. This is saying.
Okay,
this-
so you're
the
saying the
capital plan is-
Siemens project is already fully funded. We're not budgeting to put any more into that capital project.
Correct.
They'll be doing work with what has already been funded for the next couple of years. Okay.
And just to note, and we can certainly talk more about it on Tuesday, but there is, while it's not $100,000 in the facilities operating budget, there is $30,000 for facility upgrade and improvements.
Okay.
Yeah, and so some of the stuff at this point in time, Councilman, will probably be most likely more maintenance oriented versus upgrades because of the work that's being done. So most likely it'll be carried over into a different line.
That makes sense. Is the traffic truck aerial lift here, is that the sign truck?
That is another truck for Bill Wangler's crew for the traffic department.
So I happened to notice today when I was looking at that fleet list that you sent in 2019, there was a relatively high priority boom lift for replacement. And there's a note just that it should be replaced with a sign truck. Is that something you've discussed, or is that what this is talking about?
If it was in 2019, it would have been done in 2019. This will be a new truck.
I don't know. It was a priority 2 in 2019, so who knows if it was done. I don't think that was.
You also have to remember that we also have 3 individuals that work in that department. So making sure that they all have adequate equipment is important too.
Okay. I mean, as long as Bill Wengler's involved in deciding what they need here, that seems fine.
Oh yeah. That's a good point. So Councilor, so this is not Andy and I creating the list for the capital projects. This list is created from Sean Hooley at the DPW garage in consultation with all of the supervisors and with Chuck. And then they forward the requests to us. We meet with them, we go through them. We ask if they can delay, we ask if it's necessary, we ask all the pertinent questions, and then we create the list off of their recommendations. So all of these recommendations came from Sean Hooley, who actually repairs, maintains, and fixes these things. And then he maintains the master list of this as well.
Right. Council member, you all set? For now? Hello?
Sorry, I don't know if you could see me. I was nodding. I
Oh,
couldn't find the
yeah.
Zoom window
If
to unmute myself.
everyone, I'm in a very unfortunate position here where I'm using the cell phone, so I can
Gotcha.
only see the speaker. So if everyone could please speak up, because I won't see your hand raising.
My
To
hand
Looks like-
up.
Okay, just real quick, before Councilmember Ash McPherson, Councilmember Cummings brought up the 5.9, and I just have a quick question. Andy, isn't that part of the new DPW garage? I had thought that the 5.9 was. And what did we bond for that?
The
Am I wrong?
2021,
Right,
in 2021, we did we're in the middle of doing the DPW garage.
right. But wasn't that
Yeah.
part of that 5.9?
That was the 5.9.
Okay, so it was a total of 5.9. So Councilmember Cummings, that was, the bond, the 5.9.
No, understood. That was the 5.9. Did that include the salt shed as well?
Yes.
Yes.
And then, yeah, no, I was talking about there had been a proposed $100,000 per year past that, which obviously we always talk about. We're not good landlords. So, as long as we,
Got it.
it sounds like $30,000 is being put in and other money through the Siemens project. But, I don't want to be skimping on our maintenance because that only creates maintenance debt in the future.
Absolutely. Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I just want to ask a question. Rick, you made a comment that when we do the paving of the streets, we also do the sidewalks.
I think what I said is when we reconstruct a street, we also do the sidewalks. Not
So
just
what do you
paving.
mean- What do you mean by reconstruct? Milling it or?
Well, I mean, milling is often part of it, but sometimes we lay out new curbing, and then whenever we do new curbing, I believe we do new sidewalks also.
I don't think so, because that's what they've been doing on right now. They're just doing the corners. They're not doing the sidewalks.
That is curbing.
Well, that is correct, okay.
No,
What?
so
No.
the curbing that they're doing right now we're required to do the curb ramps for the CHIPS program wherever we pave, because the curbs have to be ADA accessible. It's an
Correct.
actual requirement through the CHIPS program, or we can't get the funding reimbursed. So
Correct.
if we're paving Fifth Avenue, we'll only do the curb replacements at this point in time. We might not necessarily do curb to curb sidewalks.
Correct. Well, I was just kind of confused at what Rick said, is that they do the sidewalk as well. And I'm like, no, we're not doing the
But
sidewalk.
we do through the CDBG program.
That's what
That's what Rick is talking about.
There's two programs, CDBG and CHIPS.
Correct.
And with CHIPS, well, I think we used to just do the milling and paving.
Correct.
But now we're rebuilding the ramps to make them ADA accessible.
Just the corners, but not the sidewalks. Just the
Not
corners.
necessarily the entire street sidewalk, correct.
Okay.
But let me just clarify, because with the touring route money, we are able to do that kind of work. So, we're actually able to do that kind of work with the CHIPS money. The problem is whatever $1 million we get on an annual basis isn't necessarily enough it would fund like one section of street if we had to do all of that work. Instead of being able to mill and pave. But the touring route money, of which we have a lot of allocations that we're working through right now, I think Aaron, that's one of the things that Aaron was talking about, like when he did the sidewalks up to Turnpike, and some of the other stuff, that was done with the touring route money.
Okay, I just want to make it clear that when these streets are being milled and paved, they're not automatically putting sidewalks in. I just wanted the clarification of that because the way he said that, I was like, wait a minute, there's no sidewalks going in on all these ones that I'm watching where they're doing the roads and the corners. I just want to clarify that.
Right, but they do that work with CDBG, which will be back in your neighborhood soon.
In South Story, that's secret.
Yeah.
So on Third Street, that's.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear. The next thing I want to ask is, when you're looking at these trucks down under the DPW, these are looking at anticipating how many, it says pickup trucks, plows, and salters. How many are we looking at for the 200,000? Is that in 2022?
For the pickups, if you give me 1 second, I can pull it up.
Instead of doing that, Andy, I'd like to have a breakdown of how many they're looking, unless that's going to be done in the general services.
I can work with Sean on having something ready for general services or send it out ahead of time if it's prepared.
Yep, just so I know what we're looking at is, because if we're anticipating, the 5-year plan is we need new trucks and money, I want to know how many we're looking to get for each year. This is just saying with a plural, so I know for 155,000 in 2023, how many is that going to be for the pickup trucks, or how many is it the sweeper, street sweeper? How many, you know what I'm saying? So I'd like to have an idea of that.
I can tell you the $200,000 is for 4.
In 2022, that's for 4 trucks.
Yes.
Okay. All right. If you can just give me a breakdown, or I can try and come down and sit down with you to get an idea of all this, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
I prefer Councilmember Ash McPherson a breakdown. I think that would be helpful for all of us.
Okay.
Sure.
Couple. I had a quick question. I have a couple
Oh, go ahead.
questions before you go,
I just had a follow-up on
Councilmember
that, but-
Cummings. Councilmember Ash McPherson, you all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
Real quick, Andy, Monica, the touring program, I actually, when that came out, I'd asked the mayor, I got very excited and said, okay, how do we use this? And obviously it was just announced, so we didn't get our guidelines for that, but it sounds like obviously that money's being used. I'd like the council to have a breakdown of that, what's been used, what's been paved. Aaron gave me a really good spreadsheet with the paving program. Essentially, what was proposed, what's been paved to date, and then obviously the streets that haven't been paved to date yet. So if you could give us a breakdown on that, that'd be awesome. And then secondly, the $5 million question, is the administration going to ask this council for all 5 years? Because clearly, obviously, some bonding monies are going to have to pay for this and be authorized. So are you going to look for a 5-year, 3-year, or 2-year, or 1 year? What's your game plan?
It would be for 1 year, with the exception of one item that I want to discuss when we get to it. So with the
Okay.
exception of the singular
All
item,
right.
everything else in DPW, public safety, recreation, and sanitation would be 1 year. DPU is a separate conversation.
Okay. And we could talk about when we, get to it, obviously, I'm sure it's in your PowerPoint, but I was curious. And the 5.9, that'll be in the breakdown that you're going to send to us, correct? What's been done out of those monies, Andy?
We just gave you that breakdown with the Siemens report.
I get, yeah. So, was the Siemens, did it break it down to all the projects, the 5.9?
Yes. Yes, the presentation that he gave you a breakdown of what's been spent and what the completion, what the percentage of completion
Okay.
is and everything else.
Okay, great. All
Council
right.
President?
Yes, sorry, Councilmember Cummings.
No, that's fine. First, I'll just note, as Councilmember Ash McPherson noted, it would certainly be helpful to have a breakdown of how many vehicles here. I don't know whether it's possible to integrate that into the spreadsheet that you're preparing with the inventory and sort of show at least which vehicles are being replaced within that inventory. I don't know if it makes sense to integrate that or not, but I could imagine that being a helpful way to visualize it for us.
That was the plan.
Great. And then with regard to the City Hall pool vehicles, are those electric?
The ones that we can, we also have to take if we look at the electric vehicles, if not, there'll be a hybrid because of the fact that we need to look at our charging station situation. We actually got a complaint the other day because our vehicle was plugged in and somebody couldn't plug theirs in. So yeah, so we have to take a little bit of inventory on the charging stations versus how many pool vehicles we have. But what we are doing is buying the hybrids so that they can go either or.
Okay, certainly, I imagine City Hall pool vehicles stay in the fleet longer than a lot of the other vehicles we're talking about. So the more we can move those to electric early, I don't want to be sitting on legacy vehicles in a few years.
Most of code enforcement is now electric vehicles.
Yeah,
With the
no, they're
exception
looking
of
good.
a couple of the older ones.
And is that what these pool vehicles are primarily used by code enforcement, or are they other departments as well?
Other departments as well. It's code enforcement, engineering,
They have their own.
parking, and then there's one city, literally a city hall pool vehicle that just needs to replace because it's an old Impala, and I think that was one of the ones too. But
certainly, I'll note there's some money in climate smart communities for additional and rewards for installing additional electric vehicle chargers. So if that's needed, there's certainly funding available for it. But yeah.
So
the
that'll
more we
be
can-
on the vehicle list as well too.
Great. Thank you.
All right. If everyone's good, we'll move to the next slide.
Oh, sorry, there was one more thing. The street sweeper and the, I think the asphalt truck had originally been scheduled for 2023. Is there just more available? Obviously, they're needed. They've been needed for a while. Why was that moved up to 2022 instead of waiting another year?
The street sweeper, that was the definite need. The asphalt patch truck, it's actually a vehicle that will, we can use throughout the winter and do hot patch versus cold patch, which will help our potholes throughout the winter stay patched. So I think that was something that came out of the streets department, and then the street sweeper is just, we need a street sweeper. We rented one during, if you remember, we rented one this year. We do, because the length of time it takes to get them, we did put the rental back into the operating budget, but then we'll have this going forward. Also, keep in mind, a lot of these things have a really long lead time, so it's not like we're gonna, especially now, it's not like we're gonna have these January 1st or January 2nd, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
My video just turned off out of nowhere. Okay, further questions, comments? Okay, let's hit police.
So I combined public safety onto one slide.
Okay.
The marked patrol SUVs, the unmarked SUVs, the SRO vehicle, and the evidence technician van for the police department are all funded through the proposed budget.
Sorry.
Which is a significant, from a financial perspective, would be a significant win for the city. All four of those items have a PPU of 3 years. It has been highly encouraged by any financial group or state organization that monitors the city that we had to move away from funding these purchases through debt instruments, and it needed to get into the budget. It has successfully been proposed that way. Police has $500,000 of facility upgrades and improvements to various facilities. It includes the SOS building and headquarters, and then the fire department, an ambulance, an aerial ladder, the vehicles for the battalion chiefs. I believe that those are 2, and then $875,000 to replace the concrete flooring at Station
Canal.
At Canal Street. The total capital plan is, including what's funded through the budget, is $3.353 million.
Okay, so I put the blue real quick. So the ambulance, will that be our 4th ambulance or no?
Yeah.
No,
Fourth ambulance?
no, that's to replace.
It's a replacement. Okay, that's my question. Thank you. Okay, and I had thought that, didn't we purchase, Andy, and we could ask this in terms of a breakdown when we get to police. I had thought that we had purchased some unmarked SUVs and marked patrol back in 2019, maybe. I had thought that we bonded for some, but am I off there?
No, we do, and what they do is because that probably only covers about 4 or 5 vehicles, they actually replace the fleet in sections. So the vehicles get tremendous wear and tear with the miles that they put on. So this actually helps, exactly what Councilman Cummings talked about earlier, is the fleet management of that. It keeps them on a rotation so that they don't get overly abused, so to speak.
And I'll ask the chief, but the battalion chiefs, the vehicles are worn. I saw one the other day, but obviously you don't know how many miles are on there or whatever, so we can get that info. Do other council members have questions? Okay,
Actually, yeah, Chair.
go for it,
Council
Dan.
President.
Yep, Councilmember Cummings.
I see in the 2023 facilities improvements for fire department, we got 7.5 million. Is that the Lansingburg Firehouse?
It is.
Um,
It's a projection, and I'm not gonna, don't marry us to that number because it is
No, of course.
completely a projected placeholder.
yeah. Is there money for design of that in this 8.75? Or sorry, 875?
It's something that we're actually considering under the American Rescue Plan Fund.
Oh, okay, great. I think that's it.
Okay. So Andy, what do you plan to ask or the administration and mayor ask the council? You know, say if that 875 is not in there, what's going to be asked of the council in the legislation?
It would be for everything that's not in blue, so for the police facility upgrades and improvements down to the 875.
Okay. I had on
Anything that-
I found the gallery screen, so I just went back. Thank you. So you are going to ask us for whatever 3.5 minus the blue.
Yes.
But if the 875 is ARP, you're going to take that
No.
out, right?
No, the
There's-
875 is not ARP. The new Lansingburg design of the station is ARP.
Okay.
The 875 is to replace the floor structure on the Canal Ave firehouse. The undergirding is shot, and we don't want to see the floor collapse with the fire engine on it.
And you know what? I think it'd be good, in the various committee meetings that are left, we can, you know, talk to, you know, the department head supervisors on more specifics, but thank you. Thanks, Mayor, for clarifying that. Anyone have any questions? Okay. Go for it, Andy. Are you crying?
Me?
Your head was
I was,
down.
no, I was taking notes. Recreation, so this includes both parks and the golf course, parks, a variety of different items, all with a PPU of 15 or 25 years. The facility improvements at parks would be to install a camera system at the Ingalls Avenue boat launch. There's 4 items for the golf course. Those are all funded through the proposed budget. And then $1 million for golf course improvements, which would be additional monies for phase 1 based off of updated cost estimates, and phase 2 of the master plan for the golf course.
Okay, what did we approve last year for the, I believe it was phase 1, didn't we, for the golf course? They honed it down. What was the,
750.
I'm sorry?
750. That was
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
2020.
pulling it. It was passed last year.
correct.
It was approved.
Yeah.
$725,000.
Okay, and I mean, we can ask Greg when the GS committee meets, but you know, to have a breakdown, obviously, of that $1 million that's being asked.
So we'll actually see if he can get us an update on the total project, all 4 or 5 phases of it, because like I said, this was actually originally introduced, what, in 2018, 19, something like that. So we'll actually get, see if we can get you an updated cost on the programs. And what So one of the things that Andy was referring to earlier, this is one area, and I will be really honest with you, given the circumstances that we're faced with right now, ordering times, lead times and such, and not knowing what the end of that looks like, this might be one that we might want to put out all at once and then do in phases. So price out and bid out all the work at one time. It will save not only administrative costs through all of the additional bonding, the financial costs and the financial implication of that, but it will also save on mobilization and or demobilization costs on each individual contract over the next 4 or 5 phases. So it's certainly something to take into consideration. Again, like we said in years past, it doesn't mean that we have to issue the funding all at once, but what it does is it allows us to go out to bid for the total bid package, and that will most certainly save us money in the long run.
I would definitely need, you know, a complete breakdown, et cetera. And so you're saying you're going to ask for $3.5 million from the council for the golf course?
Well, we'll get the total amount, but yes, I would recommend that the council goes in that way because it'll cost us less in the long run.
Yeah, I get that.
And
but-
it'll pay for
okay.
itself, and it will also be able to go out to bond quicker.
Yeah, but they're not going to be able to do it. It's going to be a multi-year phased approach, correct? And what if costs go up?
But it also takes longer to do the project because every year that we sit here and do this, we have to wait till at least January to go out to bid. And actually, we have to go out to January to go to bid. We have to wait. But if you are able to actually put it all out to bid at once, if there's work that can be done at certain times or double up work, they're able to do that.
I won't get into a debate tonight, but we can talk about it with Greg. You did just a typo. I think vacuum is spelled wrong, Andy. Leaf vacuum. UUCC. In the book. It says,
Oh.
Yeah.
Council President?
I will correct that. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Councilmember Ish McPherson.
I have a question on the facility upgrade and improvements. The camera system at Ingalls Ave launch, there's no cameras over there now.
No,
So if you're looking to put cameras over there, who's going to be monitoring and maintain them? Isn't there more cost to that?
that would be done in conjunction with the police department. Similar to the cameras at the 7th and Ingalls Park.
So who is monitoring them at Ingalls Ave Park? I mean, I'm just trying to.
It would be done in conjunction with the police department. Some of the cameras that they have actually record right on site. Some of them actually, I think some of the new cameras they have are actually wireless back to the station and they can pull it up. They
So
can
would
live
this,
stream it.
so adding cameras over here, is that going to increase the cost for storage and so forth? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm looking for where there's this is just saying 40,000, but I'm thinking there's going to be more of a cost to it somewhere else.
No, I don't think so. We got that number from the police department, so.
Okay.
I mean, you gotta remember that the system
Good
was
idea, but-
designed to be able to add to it. The system was designed to be able to add to it, so I can't imagine that they would put a cap on the storage amount if they know we're gonna add, so.
Right, but I don't think we have any of
certainly
this. I'm sorry. I don't think we have any of this stuff really up and running yet. I've been trying to get straight answers on what cameras are up and running and what's the storage, and we're still getting bits and pieces. So that's why I'm kind of confused at adding another camera in when we're still trying to get cameras on other blocks. I'm just trying to. But I guess
We can get you an update on what cameras, or how much of the system is installed. My understanding is the bulk of it is up and running. We don't do long-term storage on street cameras, certainly not like we do on the body cameras, so it's not nearly as expensive for storing data when you're talking about street cameras.
All right. All right, thanks.
Council President.
Yep, and I would also, Councilmember Ash McPherson, we could probably, get an update. Maybe Mayor, you could make sure for the public safety, because obviously we're all chomping at the bit with the surveillance cameras, et cetera. And okay, Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, so I see we're continuing to invest millions in the golf course, but there aren't for other facilities improvements for the parks. And there's nothing besides these cameras proposed for the next several years. Do you anticipate stretching the $2 million for the parks plan across that many years, or are there other sources of funding you're looking at to supplement that?
Other sources of funding to supplement that.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously we have an ambitious parks plan, a lot of work that is long needed. Are grant funding and other sources enough given the scale of that, or should we be looking to, at least in future years, continue to fund it in the capital plan as well?
So we're looking to allocate some, as part of that healthy neighborhood component of it, part of the funding from the ARPA is going to be allocated to, we're going to request the allocation to be towards parks. That'll take a portion of the parks plan that was presented the other night. I mean, obviously that was a tens of millions of dollars plan. So that's going to obviously have a longer term investment, but we'll see what we can get through with the funding that we've designated out. And then we can recalibrate at the next budget presentation what we might need to do on the out years of how far we can get.
Okay. I had thought that when we initially got the presentation about ARPA, you said that parks were not an eligible category. Is that changed entirely now?
No, it's always been.
It's always been.
It's always been an allowable category?
I don't know what, I guess maybe I wasn't at that meeting.
No,
I think maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
think initially you're right, Councilmember Cummings, like right off Jump Street, it kind of sounded like infrastructure and parts would not qualify. But then I think after additional digging, Mayor and Monica and Andy, the healthy neighborhoods category and creativity, it would definitely qualify. But initially it was discussed at some point. You're right.
Yeah, I remember being
Way
confused by it because of, obviously the parks have been made even more obviously important by the pandemic. So it would make sense that we could use these funds for it. But that's good to hear that has changed and that is a priority. That's it from me.
Good. Further questions? Okay, excellent. Further questions, and we can get into, some of the even more details, when parks and DPW and public safety, the committee meetings come forth, we'll be able to, dig a little deeper if need be. Go for it, Andy.
The next section is economic development, of which I'll let the deputy mayor.
So, sorry, I'm going to move up so I can make sure you hear me because the air conditioner just turned on. Under the budget, you'll see that there's been the 4 projects that have been listed out for the Economic Development Initiative. The Riverwalk Trail, which is from the Marina north to the Hoosick Street Bridge. That's the extension of the Riverwalk, the next phase of it. The Congress Street and Ferry Street project. This year's cost, the 1.9, is inclusive of the TIP award that we received a couple years ago for the area between 8th and River Street, as well as the design for the area to go over the bridge, the new infrastructure, the federal infrastructure submission that we put in. So we're anticipating that prior to budget approval, we might have an infrastructure bill at the federal level and know whether we have that funding or not for the extension over the bridge. So that 1.9 could actually be reduced to about 650, I believe it is, or $600,000. But we put the whole nut in because we're positive and we're a glass half full kind of group. You know, to start the design work in 2022 for the Congress Street and Ferry Street project, and then in 2023, the construction costs would go in. South Troy Industrial Road Phase 2, this is the second leg. All of the acquisition parts are done. The project is at DOT for approval right now. We're waiting on that. So this will be the second leg to go from Monroe, I believe it is, north and over building the new bridge to get over into south downtown, southern downtown is what we're calling it in the comp plan. And then obviously Monument Square. But I will tell you right now, the only bonding authorizations that we're going to put forward for right now till the end of this year is the 1.9 and the 7.25. We did add Monument Square because in years past we've had comments to make sure that we add projects to the capital plan that we foresee coming down the pike. We do see one Monument Square being presented to the City Council for bonding in some form or fashion with all of the various grant entities and funding opportunities associated with it in 2022. So we wanted to at least make sure it was on the docket for consideration at some point in time in the year. Same thing for the Riverwalk Trail. It is included in the DRI request, and we also wanted to make sure that that was on the radar for the council for 2022. Andy, if you want to go next, I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware with what these projects are. We've had a lot of questions. So this is the Marina North Riverwalk. Everybody knows this area is the Uniting Line area now. So this will expand north to the bridge, include redoing the park along the waterfront there. This was also included in the DRI. So our hope is that we win the DRI, so there will be additional grant funding for that. And this will carry it to the next phase, and then there'll be a design aspect to the next phase to get up to the Ingalls Avenue boat launch. Next. This is the Congress Ferry Street. This is the TIP, the original TIP application that was done for the urban streetscape proper. This is a realignment and refocus of Congress and Ferry Street. And you can see the huge amenities and huge change just in the traffic calming alone along those two roads. If you travel those roads in and out of the city, you know that they are no joke when it comes to trying to cross those. And with all of the businesses, you know, Rare Form and some of the other things that are there, it's important that we make sure we do that. Go ahead. This is the actual overhead. This rendering is this is done with the bridge. So if the bridge project goes forward, you'll see that Ferry Street becomes two-way, those two corridors. So there was an upgrade to that as well too. That's why it's important to make sure we design them together if we're awarded the project together, because there was slight changes in the TIP program when we decided to go after the Watervliet Bridge. Next.
Andy, you're going to send
this
PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
This is the Watervliet Bridge. I'm not sure if anybody has seen the final renderings of this. I know there was a presentation to Paul Tonko. This is amazing. It's very similar to probably what they're trying to do in Albany with their Riverwalk Crossing. This is a phenomenal aspect. We're actually teamed up with Watervliet to do this work. It actually makes a pedestrian area on the bridge, traffic calms the bridge, takes it down so that it's not a highway essentially. And then redoes the connection to River Street as indicated in our comprehensive plan to allow River Street to extend from downtown straight into South Troy and make that connection a lot more friendly, especially with the Penrose development. Council President, you sent that email this week in regards to that. This will help offset and jumpstart the riverside development of the Penrose project. Okay, go ahead. And then the final one is the South Troy Industrial Park Road. This just gives you an indication. It's really slight to see, but you can see where the second leg of this project goes. It is actually, yeah, I think so. Yeah, so no, it goes up further. So it's by the, yeah, it goes up. No, you're correct. So it'll go where the oh my goodness, where the Valenti companies are, and then we'll go up over the bridge. Sorry, I was thinking the Bruno Manufacturing, and I didn't want to say that name. Go over the bridge. There's a new railroad bridge being built, a new bridge, a pedestrian or travel bridge, and then go past the salt pile, and then get into River Street on the south end by the old brick. So that is the next phase of the Industrial Park Road. And that will be, upon approval, we'll go out to bid, and then we'll start construction next year.
Okay,
And I think that's it.
all right.
We just wanted to give you the picture.
Yeah, I
Council President?
appreciate that. Yep, I am just going to ask if we could have a breakdown on the South Troy Road Phase 2 before, obviously, you ask the council. Go ahead, Council Member Cummings.
Just before you take this away, I think Steve had mentioned in the planning committee that there were some hiccups with the old Bruno building. Is
That one, yep, that's been all settled.
It's settled. So
yeah, there was an issue. There was an issue with Monolith because Monolith had a solar installation on that roof, and because of their bankruptcy and their receivership, they were trying to get a hold of that to be able to move that forward.
Oh, so it was just an issue contacting the. Okay.
Yeah.
So are you making news tonight by saying that all the right of ways have been established?
I don't think that's news.
I don't think we have legal documents yet, but I think we have agreements.
We have agreements. We don't necessarily have legal deeds, but we have agreements, and that the road is being forwarded to DOT to be approved, the design, so that we can move forward with the supplemental agreement, so we can forward with the bidding.
Great. This is all two-way. Is that correct? I know. When it meets River Street, and then it'll meet the area that you were talking about in the previous slide. Does River Street continue to be two-way through basically to Congress Street? Is that the idea?
I'm pretty sure yes, but I'd have to take a look at the map again. I don't know where it stops being two-way, whether it's Ferry or Congress.
Okay, but at least get people back and forth through the bridge so that they won't have to go through all the neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's the concept. Yep, that's the concept.
Great. The other question I had, and this isn't on this, I had been looking back at last year's, obviously we had ongoing line item in the capital plan for demolition. Obviously that has been increased and supplanted by the proposed ARP funding. Nothing we need to add to the capital plan for that in an ongoing basis. That's just, I guess part of the question there is, where does that ARP funding, I guess that's in our 2021 budget. It seems like we're not really allocating any ARP funding within this capital plan. That'll happen as it gets developed through amendments.
Correct. There is no American Rescue Plan funding whatsoever in the proposed 2022 budget.
Okay, so that'll be for the next council to amend in as it gets decided.
I mean, the only thing there's not a capital plan account line in the operational budget. The documents that are in the back because they're supplemental to the operational budget. So when you guys, like, for example, when you approved the technology and the demolition in the Troy Housing Authority, we set up a capital project fund. If it's a City of Troy adventure, that money gets transferred into a capital project account. Just like the demolitions the emergency demolitions you funded, through the American Rescue Plan, that actually got put into a capital account. The Troy Housing Authority money gets transferred to Troy Housing Authority. So depending on if it's an interior piece of work or an exterior piece of work, depends on where it goes. But the capital plan and adjustments to capital plan aren't necessarily amended in the operational budget.
Right, it'll be allocating.
All set, Councilmember Cummings?
Yep.
Okay, I had a quick question. Obviously, the Nick, we can ask the status at the parks, but it was in last year's capital plan. Are we, potentially looking at other alternatives for that?
Are you talking about the Knickerbocker Ice Rink?
No, I'm sorry, the pool. Nick pool.
So we're looking at alternative uses.
Very good. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. And you'll give us a breakdown of the South Tribe Road at some point. Thank you.
So I think what Andy will do is anything that's on that spreadsheet that that he'll send you, we'll have hopefully a separate column, maybe, Andy, just spent to date.
I think so.
Yeah.
I had to.
I just don't want to make him create a whole nother spreadsheet that you have
No.
to have another spreadsheet. So we'll just try to see if we can add a column or two.
Sounds
Council-
great.
Council President?
I need him for other purposes too.
Oh, definitely. Whatever's easiest. I'm not looking to create, too much work here.
Quite honestly, I have to think it through. It could very well be a separate spreadsheet, but they will tie back to each other. I have to map out the best way to present it.
Whatever works for you, Andy. You know what we're
Okay.
looking for. Yep. Councilmember Ash McPherson?
Never mind.
Okay. It's so weird not seeing you. Okay. And Councilmember Zaluski, I'm sorry, I've never seen like a wall without any pictures. All right, take it away, Andy.
Sanitation has a capital plan proposal of $755,000. Principal portion is a rear loading garbage truck. All three of the asset purchases will replace current vehicles, and then $100,000 proposed for improvements at the Alamo site.
Could you have Renee or whoever give us a breakdown what the 100 would include?
Yes.
Perfect. And what did we approve this year? I know in last year's we had the 135, and if you look at the 2022, they had asked for 680, and they asked for an automated garbage truck. Now we're taking that out, so maybe have Public Works be ready just when we get to the garbage fund to answer some of those.
I can speak to the $135,000 in the 2021 capital plan. That was going to be based off of what we were seeing in the garbage fund in 2021 to see if it could be funded through the budget. It's not going to be able to be funded through the budget.
If you looked at last year's budget document on 265, page 265, you'll see that it says it was determined based on the results.
Yep. Yeah, that's where I'm looking. Yep. I didn't know if we partially funded it this year or not. Okay, and obviously they asked for different things last year to this year, and now they're asking for different things. So, we can ask them during GS.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I do just have one question. I don't see anything in here in the department, equipments, facilities, anything about garbage cans for all homeowners.
So
Is that what
garbage can
discussed?
purchases are done through the operational budget, not through the capital plan.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Further questions, comments, discussion? All right, public utilities?
So public utilities is broken down into 5 different components. The upper high service tank, $300,000 for design and engineering for a potential relocation of the tank. $75,000 for maintenance and engineering of Class A and B dams. $800,000 for various improvements to the water treatment plant. $220,000 for various vehicles, and $500,000, which is partially grant funded for the replacement of lead service lines. The current plan as of today is to propose the issuance of debt to fund this. However, I would like to wait and see what the year-end results are in the water fund to see if some or all of the proposed capital plan can be funded through the water fund balance, which to begin the year was stood at $5.328 million. So there will be no bond resolution brought forward on November 30th for this current council's consideration due to the circumstances of wanting to see how the 2021 fiscal year ends.
Okay. And is that A and B dams? Is that Mount Ida or what's the stat?
That's any of the dams that we have in the city, so that's a maintenance. We have to maintain and clean, essentially, the dams and stuff. So that's the Wright, the Bradley, all of them.
So, yeah,
There's
so that's not a Mount Ida,
No.
anything,
Gosh.
gotcha.
There's a
If it
$250,000.
only cost that, we would have done that already.
Go ahead, Monica, and then we'll pick council member
I
comments.
said, if it only cost $75,000, it would have been done already.
I thought it was for engineering, because it said and engineering, so I thought, maybe, I'm sure it's going to be a little bit more than that. Councilmember Cummings?
Oh, no, I was just noting there's a $250,000 next year for dam upgrades. Do we know is that a particular project in mind or just not for 2023? It's
Right.
scheduled.
Yeah, I'm not sure 100% of that. We can get a breakdown from Chris for you.
Okay. Obviously, it's a guess at this point anyway, but maybe some of that will be dependent on the maintenance and engineering findings with the Class A and B.
Okay, further questions, comments? Okay, Andy, do you have a final slide saying thank you?
That's it.
Oh.
That's it.
Okay, a lot to process, a lot of money, a lot of proposals. And yeah, I mean, obviously for me, the more breakdown, the better. And thank you, Andy, for doing the spreadsheet, but no, thank you for not getting it to me prior. But
I'm
anyway,
sorry, I wish I could have.
I know, it's okay. We'll have a follow-up. It's okay. Thank you. Thank you for all your work. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Councilmember Zaluski, yay. Do I have a second?
Second.
You sure? Okay, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, Monica, Mayor, Andy, Rick, thank you very, very much. Thank you, council. We're halfway through. Thanks. Bye.